fate, or whatever you call it. Some lucky people just find a way to beat incredible odds. Some of these stories are so astonishing, you likely won't believe them. They witnessed events that are absolutely unlikely and hardly accidental. Here is the Lucky People compilation that will blow your mind. Bill Morgan. When his car collided with a truck and he was crushed under the impact, everyone thought it was end of the line for Australian Bill Morgan. Even the doctors. Declared legally dead for more than 14 minutes, he was somehow revived and managed to survive after only 12 days in a coma, even after family removed life support. But his luck doesn't end there. To celebrate his survival, he bought a scratch-it card and won a car worth 17,000 Australian dollars. When the local news station heard about him and all his good fortune, they were so impressed they did a segment about him on the show. They asked him to reenact the scene by scratching off another card, only for him to win a whopping further $250,000 again during the live show. Edwin E. Robinson. The odds of getting hit by lightning is 1 in 12,000, but for blind and deaf 62-year-old Edwin E. Robinson, those odds rose to 100%. For Robinson, wandering around outside in the field near his house, swinging around his aluminum cane, and then taking shelter under the only tree when it began to rain was evidently too tempting for the lightning, which struck him to the ground. For 20 minutes, he lay unconscious before waking up and stumbling back to his house, going to bed for a very well-deserved nap. But when he woke up in the evening, he discovered he could see and hear once again. He was later examined by his doctor, who confirmed that he had regained both his sight and his hearing, and probably survived the blast due to the rubber-soled shoes he had been wearing. Maarten de Jong. Sometimes people survive solely because they avoid the situation that would have put them in danger. In just 4 months, Dutch cyclist Maarten de Jong cheated death by airplane twice. He booked a seat in the MH17 flight but found a cheaper flight and changed his ticket while the doomed flight he was originally intended to go on crashed midway. He was also scheduled to be on MH370, the flight that went missing in 2014 and was never found, only to reschedule it at the last moment. Anders HELSTRUP. When you go skydiving, you expect a relative amount of danger to be involved. You are jumping out of a plane and hurtling towards the earth at terminal velocity, right? There's no way there's something more dangerous than just that. Except for Norwegian Anders HELSTRUP, who ran into one complication: a meteorite hurtling down after him. This encounter was all captured on camera. Uploaded to the internet, it attracted the attention of the science community. It was later confirmed by a geologist that a meteoroid had exploded about 20 kilometers above him, and the video taken was the first ever video of a meteorite traveling through the air after its flame had gone out. Joan R. GINTHER. Did you know that you're more likely to get struck by an asteroid than win the lottery? But that didn't stop Joan GINTHER. Over the course of her life, she won the lottery an astonishing 4 times, baffling scientists everywhere. And it wasn't just a measly $20 or $50 wins either. Each time, she won multi-million-dollar payouts. It all started when she first won $5.4 million, only to win $2 million more a decade later. 2 years later, she won a cool $3 million, followed by a staggering $10 million in 2008. FRANE SELAK. Called the luckiest, unluckiest man in the world, Croatian FRANE SELAK has cheated death not once, not twice, but an amazing 7 times. His first brush with death was in 1962 while traveling in a train in January. The train flipped off the tracks and fell into a freezing river. Bystanders pulled him to shore and safety with only a broken arm and hypothermia, while 17 other passengers drowned. But his dance with death wasn't over yet. Later, in 1995, he was hit by a bus in Zagreb but only suffered minor injuries. And a year later, he managed to avoid a head-on collision with a United Nations truck on a mountain road by swerving into a guardrail. And to top his luck off, in 2003, 2 days after he turned 73, Frank Selak won $1.1 million from the Croatian National Lottery. What a birthday present! Harrison ODJEGBAOKENE. He worked as a cook on a ship. O'Keen was in the bathroom when the ship began to sink and wasn't able to evacuate in time. Fortunately, he was able to move into the engine room where an airbag formed. Rescuers were able to find him in only 3 days. Harrison was the only survivor among the 12 team members. Indeed, one fantastically lucky person. Julianne Kepke. She survived a plane crash right above the Amazon River in 1971. The 17-year-old girl was able to get out of the crash with numerous bruises and cuts. After the accident, she had to live in the jungle among wild animals for a few days until she was rescued by the locals. Julianne was the only survivor on that plane. Reshma Begum. Reshma Begum was working as a seamstress in a factory in one of the 18-story buildings, Rana Plaza. She was incredibly lucky enough to survive an explosion but remained trapped under the rubble. Fortunately, she was able to find some water and food to survive for 17 days until the rescuers let her out. Michael Sparks. While shopping in a Nashville, Tennessee thrift shop, Sparks paid $2.48 for a rolled copy of the Declaration of Independence. It was yellow with age, but when Sparks looked closer, he found it to be one of only 35 copies that were made in 1823. The document was sold for nearly $500,000. Talk about a lucky find. Mohammed Bashir Abdul KHADA. This lucky person was flying out of the Dubai International Airport in 2016, and before he left, he purchased a Dubai duty-free Millennium Millionaire lottery ticket. On his return trip home, the plane he was on crash-landed. He and the other passengers miraculously walked away before the aircraft burst into flames. As fortune would have it, he later learned that the lottery ticket he had purchased before the whole ordeal was a winner, and he became both survivor and millionaire. Yorgos Kentrotas and Oliver Vautier. Kentrotas was a meager farmer on the island of Milos where French officer Vautier had stopped. Vautier noticed that when Kentrotas was gathering stones for his farm, he stopped suddenly. What Kentrotas unearthed was a sculpture of beauty, the famed Venus Milo statue of ancient Greece. Though they don't seem to have fallen into riches as a result, of all the stones to find, Kentrotas picked a great one. These people were incredibly lucky. CONCETTA Antico. CONCETTA Antico is a techromat, meaning she's the only one in the entire world who sees the world a lot more vividly than others, making her a really lucky person. When she looks at a leaf, she sees much more than just green. She mentioned it's like a mosaic of color. CONCETTA, to me, is one of the luckiest people on earth. Nichiren. Nichiren was a prominent 12th century monk who was sentenced to execution for having written a prophecy that the Japanese authorities felt was subversive and undermining their power. As pure luck would have it, he managed to escape his own beheading when the executioner was struck and killed by a lightning bolt when he raised his sword. He was later released by authorities due to the weird circumstances. TERRI, PREECE. Oysters are a beloved fine dining food, highly sought after in restaurants and by cooks at home for their flavor, texture, and sometimes even price. They're thought of by some to be an aphrodisiac, and TERRI PREECE is more than in love with them now that she found a pearl in one. With the simple act of getting a few 49-pence oysters from Tesco, TERRI PREECE managed to beat the 1,000,000-to-1 odds to find one of the pale treasures inside. She's about to move to Spain, and her colleagues at the homeless shelter she worked at made the pearl into a ring worth £500 as a going-away present, to always serve as a little reminder of her great luck. Timothy Dexter. Dexter was an entrepreneur of the 18th century. Although his methods seemed at odds with creating wealth, he prospered many times. He purchased currency that was no longer in use, and it came back into use. The most unlikely of his fortunes was made when he aimed to provide coal to a place that already had plenty. When Dexter and his coal arrived, the existing coal mine was on strike and his stash was quickly consumed. Lena Paulson. Before we begin, click that like button to inspire us. Also, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to be inspired by this type of ultimate fact. In 1995, Swedish woman Lena Paulsson set aside her wedding ring to do some Christmas baking, but when she went to return it to its rightful place on her finger, she discovered it was gone. After years of searching, she and her husband came to the conclusion that the ring was lost forever. That is, until 2012, nearly 16 years later, when Lena found something waiting for her in her garden. While pulling up carrots, she was shocked to find her long-lost ring around one of the carrots. Apparently, this was the first time they'd planted carrots by simply throwing out the seeds at random across the garden, instead of in rows like they'd done before. She's just glad to have it back at all. Teddy Roosevelt. Former U.S. President Teddy Roosevelt had a reputation for being a stubborn fighter, which might have some weight considering he survived an up-close assassination attempt and lived to tell the tale. On October 14, 1912, Roosevelt was leaving a Milwaukee hotel for a campaign stop when he was shot in the chest by John Schrank, a New York City saloon keeper. Schrank's bullet was lodged in Roosevelt's rib, but it had been slowed by the 50-page speech and eyeglass case tucked in his coat pocket. Roosevelt refused medical attention and addressed his audience with a 90-minute speech. Said it takes more than that to kill a bull moose. Do you know anyone who is as lucky as them? Don't forget to share in the comment section. Like always, if you enjoyed it, be sure to give us a big thumbs up and leave us some love in the comment section. To keep up to date with all of our awesome videos, be sure to hit subscribe and turn your notifications on to never miss a thing. Until next time, do take good care of yourself.